Let me try to mute because I'm outside. I've been banished.
So this week's Torah portion, moving along, is Toldos, which means the birth. It's the birth of the famous twins, Esau, who's born first, and Jacob, who's born second. But I want to share something with you, which I keep mentioning, but it's so true that every time I look into the Torah portion, I see Israel. I see the current events. I see everything that's happening. It's like insane how everything that's happening in the world happens in the Torah, coinciding with this with the Torah portion. So this Torah portion is something, by the way, all the years I'm teaching, I never taught this idea, but it's so nondescript, but it's so powerful. So I want to start with this little story that happens in the Torah portion. It's a story like I said, over the years, I read it every single week when I read the Parshas Toldos, but somehow I never caught my eye to share something about it. But remember the story how Avram and Sarah there's a famine, so they end up going down to Gerar, which is Gaza. And there, Abraham, while he's there, he digs 3 wells because, when you're living in a community, you need water. We don't know about that problem. We have city water or you have well water. They had to dig wells in the olden days, and that was a big deal. They didn't have, how do you call those machines that dig? I don't know, plows, whatever. So digging was a very big thing. So Avram digs 3 wells, and the people of Gerar are not so, let's say, excited that he's actually digging these wells, because who are you digging wells? So what ends up happening is, in order for them to allow the people of Gaza, the Philistines who are there, and the king Avimelech, they make a peace treaty with Abraham. And Abraham places 7 lambs, and he says we'll make a peace treaty, and that no one will bother the wells. And they form the covenant that these wells will not be touched, these 3 wells. And they form the covenant in Beersheba, which is near Gerar. And they say, and that's why it was called Beersheba, over the wells and the oath of peace made with Avimelech. So Beersheba means bear means wells, Sheva means oath. They made an oath of peace. There was a peace accord in Gaza, Beersheba, which is close to Gaza, between Abraham and Avimelech, the Philistines. Very nice. Now let's fast forward to the Torah portion where Yitzchak is a famine. History repeats itself. Yitzchak goes down to this area called Gaza, Gerar. And Yitzchak, again, they need water. He notices his father's wells were now destroyed, filled up with rocks and sand. By whom? By the people of Gaza. Avram left 3 gorgeous wells there. His son comes back, the wells are no more. The people of Gaza have destroyed these wells. They've filled it up with rock and sand. So what does Yitzchak do? He begins to clear out the wells. His father dug wells. He clears out the 3 wells. He digs 3 more wells. And when he's digging these 3 more wells, now there's 6 wells, the people of Gaza, Avimelech and his people, come and said, who are you? Why are you digging wells here? You don't belong here. God gives you a right to be here. Go, leave. So he leaves. He goes back to Beersheba. And he's in Beersheba, Yitzchak, with his back home. And his servants, they need water. So they begin to dig a well in Beersheba, and they succeed. And as they finish digging this well in Beersheba, Avimelech sends a delegation together with himself to come to Yitzchak. And Yitzchak says, why are you here? You just kicked me out of Gerar, Gaza. Why are you coming to me? What do you want? What do you want? I dug 6 wells there. You didn't want me to settle there, so I came back home to Beersheba. I dug my well here. What do you want? So Avimelech says, I'm thinking it over. I want to make peace with you. I want to have a little bit of a peaceful coexistence. And so they make a feast, it says, and they make an informal peace treaty, and Avimelech and his people go back to Gerar. Okay? Fine. So you see, history repeats itself. Okay, so first of all, what is the story? Jane, Shelley, Diane, what does the story really give us? Except nowadays it might seem very relevant. Remember the story with Gush Katif? The Jews built an oasis of hothouses, and then the Israeli government made a peace treaty with the Arabs, and they gave them away this beautiful land, and they turned it into rocket launching sites. Does it seem very relevant? Look at this. Avram dug 3 beautiful wells in Gaza, and when he left, they filled it up. Why did they continue using the wells? The same thing, Yitzhak goes back, he reopens the 3 wells, he digs 3 more wells, and they complain to him that he's intruding on their territory. So he goes back home, builds a well, and they change their mind. They go, we want to be in peace with you, Yitzhak. We see you're a man of prosperity. We want to be at peace. So there's a feast, an informal peace accord, and the Philistines, the Plishtim, go back to Gaza, go back to Gerar. So this is an interesting story here, but it's like, wow, mind-boggling. It might even be a little boring. Who wants to hear about how they dug wells? By the way, they did excavation now in Beersheba, and they discovered more and more of the infrastructure where Abraham and Yitzhak used to live. They're beginning to uncover all these houses and signs where they actually lived. So the Torah also, we have to ask one more question. Beersheba was called Beersheba because Abraham dug wells there, and then he made an oath of peace with Avimelech. So it's called Beersheba from the days of Abraham. So why does the pasuk now say that after Yitzchak dug 7 wells, 3 he uncovered his father's, 3 he dug new ones, and then 1 back in Beersheba, he's called Beersheba because of the 7 wells? Wasn't it named Beersheba because Abraham made a peace accord with Avimelech over the wells? Why does the Torah say, and it was called Beersheba for all days because of Yitzchak's digging of the wells? Which one is it? Was it named Beersheba because of the oath of peace over the wells? Or was it named Beersheba because there were 7 wells? Which one is it? And why does the Torah say it was named Beersheba for all days because of Yitzchak? Because that he dug 7 wells. Does everybody get the question, right? Is it named because Abraham made an oath with Avimelech, or is it named now? And then why is it being renamed? It's the same name. So one comment, Jane, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just demuted. I was just thinking out loud. Can both answers be correct? Can it be for both reasons?
Yeah, very good. Both reasons are right. Both reasons are actually right. Both reasons, because one commentary actually says what you say, that it's actually 2 different names. One means Be'er Sheva, the well of the oath, and now it's named Be'er Sheva because of the 7 wells, but this commentary says it's 2 separate places. This is his opinion, but that's not the opinion I'm going to center around. One opinion is it's 2 separate places. Avram's Beersheba is the place where he makes the oath with Avimelech, and Yitzchak's Beersheba is the one where this because of the 7 wells. So that's one commentary. But there's another very beautiful insight. And by understanding this insight, we have to understand why the Torah emphasizes and talks about wells. Remember, we always say that the story and the Torah is multiple dimensional. It could either be telling us a story of wells, a story of their travels, a story of peace accords, but there's always something deeper that is really giving us direction in life and how we approach our purpose, our mission, who we are, where we're going, where we're coming. I don't know if I'm coming or going, but the Torah is multi-dimensional. So we could be reading a story of history, but also we could be reading now something much deeper. What is a well? Let's define a well based on Hasidic Jewish mysticism. What's a well? Who would like to describe what a well is?
Well, you talked about last week when they were looking for a wife and they met at the well. Like this was a meeting place and a spiritual place, and spiritual things always happened at a well. It wasn't just water. It was more life-sustaining and community.
Beautiful. I didn't think of that parallel. You notice all the patriarchs, they're always meeting at the well. What's going on at that well? Very good. That's a very good analogy. I like that. I didn't even think in that direction. That's beautiful, Jane. Anybody else want to add? So go ahead. Somebody wants to say something? So a well is the concept of digging. In order to have a well, to reach water, and sometimes, you even hear from Western people, because Western has wells. One lady writes, I saw in Western families or Western town, our well has dried up. What do you do? She's a New Yorker. Whoever heard of a well drying up in New York? So they all tell her, you got to redig, you got to find new location.
Terrible.
It ended up, her pump was broken. But anyway, okay, it was a humorous story. So the concept of a well based on Hasidus and Kabbalah is we all have a godly soul, a godly well within us. Now, for some people, the well is on the surface. The flowing waters, the life that sustains us, the vitality, the excitement, the joy, and connecting to ourselves, our wellspring, our neshama, is not such a hard task. You dig 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, and the person already is able to draw from that vitality and energy within themselves. For other people, their well is buried very deep, requires a lot of digging, working on yourself, releasing all the things, the pebbles, the sand, the rocks that have clogged up your well. And there's so many things in life that clog up our wells and hold us back from discovering the joy of life, the energy of life, the connectivity to God in our lives. So we're downtrodden. We haven't been able to tap into our well. And also sometimes we tap into our well, but it gets clogged again because of life's challenges, people who tear us down, the situation, sometimes the challenges. Sometimes some people, like even take it now with the situation in Israel. I speak to so many women and men. Every Shabbos, it's a counseling session. You meet people, we're all depressed, we're all upset, we're all angry. But there's a different approach. You see different people. Some people, this is really, really pulling them down. They can barely drag their feet into shul. I'm using shul because that's where I'm meeting a lot of people. And then there's those people, they're in shul. They're angry, they're upset, but they're fighters. Rabbi, let's do another thing. Let's do more. Let's go march. Let's go give. Let's go sell. They're proactive. Their wells are open. And then the people who don't, their wells are clogged. They don't have within themselves the connection, knowing, God has a divine plan. It's dark, it's painful, it's hurtful, but they don't feel the connection. So for them, it's even a much more strenuous, horrifying situation because there's no inner resources to pull them out. So that's the Torah's talking about digging wells, is that you have to dig and find your well. And it's not a one-time thing, because many times, again, the well gets clogged up. Things are covered over. What we had before excavated now becomes recovered, and you have to work again. But definitely the Torah is telling us how important to dig your well, to find that vitality. Water is a source of vitality and energy. So the question is now, how come Abraham's wells got clogged up? Abraham's wells? Abraham's wells, not my wells. Abraham's wells got clogged up, and Yitzchak had to reopen them. Remember, it says he redug his father's wells and added 4 more wells, which again tells the story of our life. Avram's mission, Avram's purpose, and Avram's success, that he revolutionized the entire world to believe in one God, monotheism, and not in idolatry. He was a revolutionary. He dug wells. And he was an inspiration with Sarah. Whoever met them was inspired, uplifted, and drank from the wells. That's our Babas and Zaydis. Our Babis and Zaydis in Europe. Our Babis and Zaydis even in the shtetl. My Baba and Zayda from Russia. They dug the wells and they inspired us. But look, the next generation didn't necessarily feel that inspiration. The wells got clogged because though Avram and Sarah were a light onto everybody in the world, but once they were gone, the children didn't necessarily have the inspiration. When Zaidi wasn't making Kiddush and Zaidi passed away, Mama and Papa said, we're New Yorkers now. Do we really need the shtetl of life? We're New Yorkers. We're modern. We don't need those old traditions that tore us down and caused pogroms. So this generation gave up. There was no one inspiring them. The wells got clogged. Why did Yitzchak's wells remain open? Because the work, what Yitzchak added to his father, which does not show poor light in Avram, it's showing reality, is he dug very, very deep. He dug so deep that he created an everlasting vessel to hold the water, to bring the water. What Yitzchak added to his father it's the inspiration of Avram. Once Avram was gone, the inspiration didn't necessarily live on. What Yitzchak taught us is that you got to bring in inspiration comes from within. You cannot always rely on your mama, your papa, your Zaidi, your bubby, your rabbi, your Rebbitzin. When you're with the rabbi and Rebbitzin and they're screaming, holy, holy, you're feeling great, you go home. Oh, do I really got to do that? It sounded good there, but I got home, I'll tell you, it ain't an easy task. I don't think so. Inspiration must come from within. If it doesn't come from within, then you're holy when you're with the holy rollers. What happens when you're home? What happens when you're traveling? Do you lose that? That's why your wells have to come from within. Your inspiration cannot only come from external, which was the Avraham symbol. It has to come the Yitzchak symbol, where you dig, it's because it's inside of you. Your faith, your love, your joy in life has to come from your well. I can inspire you to work out in the gym, but what happens when I'm not there? What happens when the coach isn't yelling, 10 more to go, up, down, when you're home? Do you now go, do you now engorge on all the cake because your coach is in the gym? So that's the Yitzchak well inspired us to have it within ourselves. It's good when Bubby and Zaidi inspired you. It's good when Bubby and Zaidi said, yes, it's Shabbos today, Kinderlach. I don't care if you're American, get to the table. But when Bubby and Zaidi passed away, we lost it. The inspiration wasn't there. We now are Americans, Canadians, wherever we come from. So that's the Torah says that it's called Be'er Sheva for the 7 wells of Yitzchak, because Yitzchak created the eternity of the wells. the permanence of the wells. He taught us you have to dig deep in and create that vessel, that you have to create your own well. And that's what will bring the permanence. That's what brings the permanence. So where Abraham began the process, Yitzchak showed us how to keep the process going. So you see the patriarchs and matriarchs all complemented each other. All complemented each other. And by the way, the three wells that Abraham dug initially represent the three temples. The first one that was destroyed, the second one that was destroyed, and the third one that will never be destroyed. Because the third one will not be built by man. It's going to come down straight from the heavens in one piece, like a magical UFO. A Beis Hamikdash coming down. Ooh, it'll be dropped in Jerusalem. Oh, nice building here today. That's what the Torah tells us. So this is the concept why the well story, though insignificant, really, really brings us to a new understanding. That each and every one of us is a wellspring. And we could also give other people water. You know, when you're happy, when you feel content, when you have direction in life, you can be a barometer for somebody else. You can be someone else's compass. That's why people are drawn to people with positive energy, because they find that you could feed off it in a very positive light. Who wants to hang out with Debbie Downers? You want to hang out with people that inspire, because why are they inspirational? Because it comes from within. Like I once told my mother, Mom, I'm so bored. I'm so bored. She said, you're bored because boredom comes from within. You're boring, so you're bored. I'm like, I'm not. No. My mother said, prove it. My mother was no nonsense. Like I once called my father, I said, Tom, I'm so bored. He says, Freida, you have 11 children. How could you be bored? I said, Ta, it's not, I have plenty to do, but it's something inside. I'm bored. I need inspiration. That's what it meant. I'm bored. Not I'm bored. I have nothing to do. Yeah, I could always do another load of laundry. So it comes from within. We have to tap into our wells. Does anybody want to add anything, say anything? Tell me about your well.
Well, I don't know how deep this is, but when I would tell my father I was bored, he would say, okay, go play in the traffic. That was his answer. And what he meant was, that's really silly, you know, look for something to entertain yourself or to think about. But he would say, go play in the traffic.
Very good. Oh, God. Very good. Very good. So anybody else want to share their well? Like, what do you do when you feel your well is tapped out? Anybody have advice for the rest of us plain folk?
You know, I feel that happens a lot. A lot of times when I'm tired, I struggle with it. And sometimes when I'm frustrated that I can't find what I'm supposed to do with it, it's so frustrating. And when the people around me are clogged, sometimes I'm good at helping them, but sometimes it's paralyzing. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. But it's also something I love to, you know, try to keep the people around me uplifted. So that's a good thing.
You know, sometimes they say fake it, because you'll fake it. That's why it says,
that's right.
There's a concept in Judaism. You're not, let's say, in the mood for Shabbos. Like 1 week, I'll tell you, I was hoping to push off Shabbos. I'm like, I can't cook another 10 courses.
And cook all this, yeah.
But so you do it. You do it out of obligation. I banged a few pots. I burnt a pot of rice, but I got it done. Sometimes you have to fake it because you need to do it, and then your wellspring opens up that way. Sometimes it doesn't come necessarily always where jumping up and down. It's sometimes you push through, right? Yeah. Sometimes you just simply have to push through. Did I ever tell you the story of the Nazi officer's wallet?
Oh.
I want to share a story with you before we go into the next section. about a story that I heard. So there was a guy, but I don't want to repeat it if you already heard it. You sure you didn't hear it?
I don't
think so.
I don't think so.
So there was a guy who's like the mayor of Lower Galilee. His name is Mati Dadun. He's like he represents the Lower Galilee in Israel. And he was in Germany, and he met a German parliamentarian named Dedak Herzog. Dedak Herzog. And he assumes Mati is Jewish. So he says, "You're Jewish, you're from Israel." He says, "Yes." And he hands him a gorgeous wallet, leather wallet. He said, "On my father's deathbed, my father gave me his wallet, and he told me that this must be returned to the holiest Jew in the land of Israel." And inside this wallet, the son tells Mati, "My father kept his Wehrmacht, German officer identity card. This was the pride of his wallet, this officer card." Who was his father? His father's job was to burn all the synagogues in Germany. And he goes into one synagogue, his father, and on the floor is unrolled a Torah scroll. And he bends down and he touches it, and he's like, "Wow, this is beautiful leather." So he takes his knife, he cuts out a piece, and he makes a wallet out of it. Beautiful parchment, parchment and Torah is very fine. And he keeps his officer card in it. He so loves his wallet. When he was dying, he said to his son, "I have to repent for the travesty I did to the Jewish people. I am so horrified by what I did in my life. Please make sure this wallet gets returned to the holiest man in the land of Israel." So Mati takes this wallet and he goes to Migdal HaEmek to Rabbi David Grossman. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a very famous rabbi. He opened up yeshivas, but he used to come to the Lubavitcher Rebbe to visit when he used to come from Israel. Very special Jewish guy, rabbi. He brought back thousands of lost teens back to Judaism. Teens who drifted away or couldn't find their place. He's beloved. So he gives him this wallet. He tells Rabbi Grossman the story. And Rabbi Grossman opens up the wallet. And inside the wallet are still the words from the Torah scroll that was cut out. What are the words of the Torah scroll? Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lefnei Hashem Elokeichem. God is telling the Jewish people through Moses, "You will always be standing before me. I will always be with you." 60 years after he cut off that piece from the Holocaust, that piece, it is returned back to the Jewish nation. Now, what's this passage? This passage is in Parshas Nitzavim, and Rashi asks a question. The previous Torah portion, Kisavo, talks about rebuke. Moses tells the Jewish people, if you don't follow the mitzvahs of the Torah, there will be repercussions. So Rashi says, what happened? The Jewish people started to shiver, shake. They turned pale. They said to Moshe, no, we'll never be able to be that perfect. We'll never be able to persevere. We'll never be able to follow all the time everything. So in the next Torah portion, it's juxtaposed. This passage is juxtaposed to the rebukes where God says to Jewish people through Moshe, don't worry. Even in your darkest times, I'll always be standing by your side. I'll always be standing by your side, even in the darkest moments. It took 60 years, but this wallet, this passage, the idea is eternal. It always comes back. So we're now in a very, very dark time. We're in a dark time. There's no doubting it. Even though we know God has a plan and we have faith and God will never let us fall. Never. We are the eternal people. Forever we will stand. No one was able to wipe us out till this moment. You think the Hamas is going to wipe us out? God forbid. They have nothing on us. Where are the Crusaders? Where's the Pharaohs? Where's Haman? Where are all the people who rallied to destroy every Jewish human on earth? They're nowhere to be found, but we are here. And in this week's Torah portion, it's clearly expressed with the birth of the twins. I want to share one story from the birth of the twins that will define, I think will give us strength in how we should look at our lives right now. So there's two sons, Esau and Jacob. And it's very apparent as they're growing up that Esau is not following the path of his parents. He's a murderer. He loves to kill and hunt. And he worships idolatry. And Jacob is a young boy who sits in the tent and studies. He's a scholar. He follows the path of his mother and father. Now Yitzhak is getting older, and he says to his son Esau, I want to give you the blessing. Rivka, the mother, overhears this and says, oh, no. Esau cannot possibly get the blessing of the firstborn. He's not going to follow his father's path. He's not going to be the successor of Isaac and Abraham. He's not worthy. He doesn't have an interest. So she calls her son Jacob. She calls him, says, time to leave your tent and go out into the field. Go bring me back 2 goats. I'm going to cook them. I'm going to prepare them for your father. And he does that. He goes out into the field. He brings back the goats. His mother cooks them. She gives him the hunter's clothing of Esau, the beautiful furs. He goes into his father's chamber. And what does his father say to him? Who remembers the famous words? Hakol kol Yaakov v'hayadayim yidei Esav. The voice is the voice of Jacob. But the hands are the hands of, Diane? Esau. Remember, Yitzhak was blind. Why was he blind? When he was sacrificed, remember his father was about to kill him because God said, bring me your firstborn son. And then God says, no, it was a test. And the angel saw Isaac bound on the altar and Abraham lifting up his knife to kill his one and only son because God said, bring your firstborn as an offering. The angels began to cry. They couldn't believe it. How could God ask Abraham to kill Yitzchak, Isaac, his only son with Sarah? They couldn't believe that God would do such a thing. They began to cry. And when Yitzchak's eyes were up, looked to the heavens, the tears fell into his eyes, and they were so powerful that over time he developed blindness. So Yitzchak can't see. And by the way, don't you think the angels are crying now as they watch the hostages, as they watch the soldiers fighting for their lives? I mean, I'm thinking about it.
Yes.
Don't you think the angels are crying and saying, God, how could you do this to the Jewish people? Shabbos, we sat in our tents in Israel, celebrating Simchat Torah. And then we were forced to go out into the field and to battle. This is the story. I'll continue. So Yitzhak says to Jacob, I hear the voice of Jacob, but I see the hands of Esau. So let me ask you a question. If Yitzhak thought the wrong guy was in the room, couldn't he have done a little investigation? Don't give away the blessing. Say to your servant, who's in the room with me? I want to make sure it's Esau, not Jacob. I want to give Esau the blessing. But he doesn't do that. He says, it's the voice of Jacob, the hands of Esau. Here's the blessing. Think about that. Perhaps he really knew who it was. Second question is, Rivka and Yitzhak were very close. They had a loving relationship, an open relationship, a communicative relationship. Why couldn't she say, honey, we need to have a cup of coffee? There's a problem here. You want to give the blessing to Esau, but I don't know if you realize your son Esau is a hunter. He's a killer. He murders for blood, not because he needs a goat. He worships idolatry. He cannot be your successor. You cannot give him that special blessing. Honey, let's talk about it. What do you think? She doesn't do that. She calls Jacob in. She just puts him in the clothes of Esau, says, go get the blessing. What's happening here? Why deception? So the story based on Hasidus, you have to understand this only on Jewish Kabbalah and mysticism, otherwise it's too complicated, is God created Esau and Jacob. Every person has a certain power, a certain potential. And as we grow in our lives, we have to tap into our potential. We have to tap into our power. We have to tap into our talents. Now, at times, you don't want to tap into what you ought to be. You tap into what you want to be. Esau decided he doesn't want to be a successor to his father. He wanted to give in to his bloodlust. He loved to hunt and kill and do other terrible, immoral acts. So the potential to be the leader of the Jewish people was there as the older son. But did he tap into the potential? No. He decided he does not want that role. He wants a different role in his life. So when Yitzhak gives birth to two children, in his mind, he saw Esau had a tremendous power. In his mind, Esau was going to be the king of Israel, the general, the warrior, the conqueror. Lest anybody come to Israel and try to hurt the Jews, Esau would leave the Jews in battle. And his second son, Jacob, he saw as the Rebbe, the scholar, the prophet, the judge, the shofet. He thought his two sons would lead the Jewish people in unison, one to be the conqueror, the king, and one to be the leader, the spiritual leader of the Jewish people. That's why it says Jacob sat in the tents. He was a scholar. He was an intellectual. He was a philosopher. He was a gentle soul. And Esau could have been the leader of battle. No one would have touched the people of Israel when Esau was the king. But Esau didn't want that job. So now what happens? Rivka, who grew up in a place of immorality and thievery, saw the truth that Esau cannot be the future successor. So she calls over Jacob. She says, Jacob, you now have to become a dual identity. You have to be the man, the future leader of spiritual leader, but you also have to become the king, the general, the soldier, the warrior, the conqueror. Go out into the field, go get those goats. Work on yourself, transform yourself, because you're now going to have to be both roles in your life. You're going to have to be the president and the general, the Rebbe and the leader, the conqueror. And Jacob realizes, yes. So there's a transformation that takes place. He comes back in. His mother gives him the furs of Esau. And Yitzhak looks at him and says, I see, my son. You will not only be the spiritual leader, the voice of Jacob. You are now also going to be the hands of Esau. You are going to now turn into the battler, the conqueror of Israel. You will protect the people. And this is who we are, because we're the children of Jacob. We know how to sit peacefully in our tents and make Kiddush and celebrate Simchat Torah. But we also know that when those terrorists came to the gates on Shabbos, we grabbed our swords and we went to battle for the lives of the Jewish people. Because that's what Jacob does. Jacob knows how to sit in peace, but Jacob also has the hands of Esau, knows how to be a general and fight for the lives of his people on Shabbos. Because the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, says, and the Rebbe would quote this often, if the non-Jew enemy comes to the borders of Israel and tries to take your hay and straw, take your sword to battle on Shabbos. Why? Because next they will come to take your land and conquer the land. It's from the Code of Jewish Law. I didn't make it up. God gives us a law. on Shabbos, a law that has to do with Shabbos. It's Shabbos, and they only came to take your hay and straw on Shabbos. Grab your sword, because next they're going to come for your land and your people. So we know that, like I've said this many times, that we are the children of Jacob. Whatever our matriarchs and patriarchs did was not just, oh, it sounds so nice. It's such a nice lesson in life. They paved the way for us. They paved the path. There'd be a one time that we would have to leave our tents and go fight. Jacob already did that. He became the warrior. He got the blessing to be not only the scholar, but the warrior. And we have that energy. There's no doubt about it. Are we warriors by nature? No. We only fight because we need to fight. We are people of the tent. But we are also people who know that when we have to protect the men, the women, and the children, and the land of Israel, we are going to be warriors and soldiers and generals. That's who we are. And even when we fight, we have humanitarian passes. We're bringing incubators. We're bringing fuel, which the Hamas steals from their own population. We're protecting our enemies because we don't want civilians to get hurt. Are we not the people of Jacob who love peace? Anybody questions it? Because I see everybody's writing, what do we say? What are our answers? So I posted my brother's article now on Jewish Westport, which gives you answers. Why don't we just make peace? Why don't we just have a ceasefire? Why don't we just give up the land? My brother, Yosef Yitzchak, is brilliant. He gave out a piece. He's a brilliant writer and he's a brilliant speaker. He gave out a piece answering all these questions. How come the Jews never want to make peace? He shows 4 times we try to make peace. They didn't want. They didn't want. To our own detriment, thank God they didn't want, because we would have been giving away all of Israel to them. So we have to be strong and understand who we are. When we don't realize where our well is, we don't realize who we are, we can't stand up, even in conversation. Even in conversation, we can't stand up. And by the way, you don't have to answer every one of the anti-Jews, anti-Semites, because it's going to be a never-ending thing. Yeah. Cancer has to be cut out. There's no conversation with a cancerous cell. Oh, please don't hurt me. Oh, please don't replicate. Oh, please don't go into my bloodstream. When people want to kill you, they want to kill you. When someone comes and does a house invasion, don't start negotiations. Take your gun and protect your family. We have to be strong, not because, God forbid, we're killers. I don't even think I could shoot a gun, I was telling my husband. And my husband said, Freida, you'll need to shoot your gun. You'll be shooting your gun. Trust me. Someone's going to come hurt the kids. You're going to take out your gun. And I'm thinking, yeah, I guess he's right. Because he said, let's go take lessons. Let's go shoot. And I'm like, I don't even know how to shoot a gun. I don't even know if I could hold a gun. I'm so scared. And that way I'm very girly. So this is it. This is why Jacob gets both blessings. He needed it like a lochen cup, what they say, like a hole in there. But the Torah is teaching us that we are given that energy and that power to be the people of peace. And at times we must be people who fight back. Sometimes words are not enough. You need to take a sword, because that's what it is. So the Torah portion this week is very rich. It gives us the concept of digging into our wells, and also gives us perspective of who you are. Sometimes you forget who you are. We are. It's very hard to sometimes look at ourselves and say, you know what? Ani Yehudi. I am a Jew. And Jews are strong in many ways. Also, look at the brilliance of the IDF, how they figure out these plans. We're not warriors by nature, but it's the Yiddish cup that allows them to figure out a siege, how not to go into the tunnels because they're booby trapped. They're brilliant. They're brilliant strategists. So we have to know who we are. We are people of peace. But when the Torah tells you on Shabbos, desecrate the Shabbos to protect your hay, your straw, because they're going to come after you next. God would not say this if it was just flippant. Nothing is flippant in the Torah. Everything has a place and a time. So before I want to finish off with the story I read, which I thought was like very, very beautiful. Does anybody want to share anything, say anything? Debate the issue at hand. Did I share the poem from Zelda last week? The poem of Zelda?
No.
Did you? I don't remember.
So I want to share a poem in conclusion. I have a story and a poem. I'll start with the poem, then I'll do the story, tell the story if you want, if you have patience.
Yes.
So Zelda, if you look up Zelda, she was a famous poet. She was a Chabad woman. She was the first cousin of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, older cousin. Her father and the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father were brothers. When her family ran away from Ukraine due to persecution, they came to Israel. She married a guy, Chaya Milchovsky. So her name was Zelda Schneerson Milchovsky. She has the same last name as the Rebbe. She was a teacher. Then she started to write poetry. Her poetry written in Hebrew was so brilliant that even the secular world began to rave about her magnificent poetry. And because I read this poem, I'm like, started to read her poetry, and I noticed a lot of it is based on Jewish Hasidus, which is mysticism. So it's brilliant. So she never had children.
Wow.
And she writes a poem after the Israel freed Jerusalem and the Kotel from the Jordanians. Remember, there was a time we couldn't go into the Kotel. It wasn't ours.
Yeah.
That terrible war. So she writes like this. I went into Jerusalem. I'm saying it in English because it's in Hebrew. I went to the Kotel. You know, everybody knows the Kotel, the Wailing Wall. I don't like calling it the Wailing Wall, but it's called the Wailing Wall. And she says in Hebrew, Shachachti Eshemi. I forgot my name. The name of the poem is I forgot my name. I forgot my name, she says. I was now no longer Zelda, she says in her poem. I was Jerusalem. I was the wall. I was the people of Israel. Shachachti Eshemi, I forgot my name. And when I read this poem, which I guess was divine providence because I just read it, I said to myself, each and every one of us, and I think you feel like I feel, none of us are who we are. We are now the mothers of Israel. Those are our children, our fathers, our brothers, our sons. We are now Klal Yisrael. Each and every one of us no longer has our own name. We are one with Israel. That's who we are now. Shachachti Eshemi. I don't have a name. And I think each and every one of us now feels such a closeness. We are bound together now. The whole world of Jews is bound together. Unfortunately, it came through Hamas and these terrible atrocities. But if you look at the world, every man, woman, and Jewish child is now one. We all are one. I don't think there's a Jew on the face of the earth that is not feeling the pain, is not feeling the pressure, is not feeling the hate. We're one heart, one soul beating together. This is who we are right now. And God has to see this, and God has to bring Mashiach now, because if Mashiach isn't ready to come right now, I don't know when Mashiach is ready to come. So what do I say in conclusion to this day? We must stay strong. We must stay united. We must do every mitzvah possible. Tzedakah, prayer, lighting our Shabbos candles 18 minutes before sunset, mezuzahs on our doors, holy books in our home, keeping kosher, going to mikvah, educating our children with Jewish education, tefillin for the men and boys. Any mitzvah we can do, we shall do it, because Am Yisrael Chai. We'll live on forever and ever and ever. That's who we are. We are the children of Abraham and Sarah and Yitzhak and Rivka and Yaakov and Rachel and Leah. And no one will be able to take that away from us.